Hello. And Thursday night at 8 o'clock, we should all be watching TV or getting ready to go to bed. But appreciate you guys hanging around here. A couple people are signing in already. I did just email everybody last night's class. And last night's class, like I said, it takes a couple hours for the Zoom class to download after I finish the class. And then I have to upload it into YouTube, which takes another hour, and then I have to edit it. So in order to rush through and make sure you got it tonight, because people have been saying they want them sooner, I didn't edit it. So it's from in the beginning, you'll have to move forward to find where the class actually starts, because getting everybody signed in shows at the beginning. But the purpose was just to get it to everybody more quickly so they could all get started if they wanted to rewatch it. We got a little further today on our catalog. Within a couple of days, we should have our catalog already. So you'll be able to just go on the bestschoolofrealestate.biz website and just click on the test or the YouTube video you want right from there. So if we get that all automated, that's really cool. So it's only a couple of minutes, still 5 minutes before 8. So we'll give everybody else a chance to come on. And you guys are dedicated students to come on at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. So good job. Before class tonight, I was looking through the foreclosure list for Middlesex and Monmouth County, and the list is starting to grow again. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it's going to add more. It's going to add more people to more houses to the inventory. So that should help people who are searching for houses now to have a few more to look at. And again, we're still a couple minutes before 8 o'clock. I'll get started right at 8 o'clock. We only have 4 people on here right now. But I do want to remind everybody that no formal classes next week. I will post videos for both Tuesday and Wednesday night, and brand new tests for both Tuesday and Wednesday night. And I'll give everybody credit for those 2 nights. It'll give you something to do while I'm unavailable to have the classes. Other than that, it's almost 8 o'clock. We'll give it another minute, see who shows up. And then we're going to do some math tonight. I'm hoping everybody can see the first slide. We've got another minute to go. All right, we might as well get started. Other people will pop in. Just as I say that, they pop in. And more people are coming. So I was just jumping the gun there by a little bit. So we'll give everybody a second to get in. Okay. So I do want to remind everybody again, and I apologize for repeating myself. I sent everybody a link to last night's class, but I didn't fully edit it. All I did was upload it and then process it from Zoom and then upload it to YouTube. I didn't edit it on YouTube. So you'll have to kind of navigate around to get past the beginning of the class, like what we're doing now. You don't want to have to sit there and listen to the YouTube where we're going through waiting for people to sign in. You can just move forward and navigate past that part. And then if you wanted to watch last night's class, and that link will be good forever. So you can watch the class anytime you want. Eventually we'll get to editing that video and tightening it up and removing the things like the dead parts in the beginning and the dead parts in the end. But I just wanted to rush to get it up there as quickly as possible. Reminder, there's no class Tuesday or Wednesday, and I will post some new YouTube videos and some new tests for Tuesday and Wednesday night, and give everybody hours, their hours for the credit for the class for those nights. So all we're going to do tonight is math, and make sure that if slides don't move forward or you can't hear me, you let me know. And these math questions are questions that people have brought me back from the test. So they're questions that you might anticipate seeing on the test. So the first one is, a client tells you is willing to pay a 5% commission as long as they net $250,000 on the sale of their home. So the question is, how much do we have to sell the home for the client to net $250,000? How much do we have to sell the home for the client to net $250,000? And the way we do this is we say $250,000, and then we divide it by what we call the additive inverse of 5%. 5% is written as 0.05. What do you have to add to 0.05 to get the number 1? You'd have to add 0.95. That's called the additive inverse. So we're going to divide our 250 by the additive inverse. That's 0.95. And so our answer then would be 250,000 divided by 0.95. And that would mean we would need to sell the house for $263,157.90. Okay, then they'll round off that 90 cents on the test. Now, here's a way to check if you've got the right number, because this is going to be one of the answers. Let's say it's answer B. Let's say it's answer B. Now you want to double check to see if you have it right. So what you want to do is you want to take that 263,157 and you want to take away your 5% commission. You want to take away your 5% commission and see what it leaves you. So if we take 263,157 and we multiply it by 0.05, it comes out to 13,157.90. And if we take 13,157.90 from 263,157, it leaves us with $250,000. Okay, that's a common question on the test. It's a common question in real life. I've got a short sale at 8 Gurley Road in Edison, and in order for the bank to approve the short sale, they have to get $336,000, and my commission is going to be 5%. And so, how much? If the bank needs to net 336, what do I need to sell it for? Again, 336 divided by the additive inverse of 5%, which is 0.95. So that means we have to have the property sell for, in order for the bank to approve the short sale, 336 divided by 0.95. And that comes out to 353,684. So this is the kind of question that not only is it a question that's always on the test, but it's a question that today in real life on 8 Gurley Road in Edison, we have to answer. Okay, number 2, we've got a chat here. What if a client wants to give you a bigger percentage? Well, okay, let's go back and talk about that. That's not a bad question. So now she wants to net 250. Sorry about that. Now she wants to net 250, but she wants to give you a 6% commission. How much do you have to divide the 250 by? The additive inverse of 6%, which is, what do you have to add to 6% to get 1? 0.94. So you're going to divide 250 by 0.94. And then that 250,000 divided by 0.94, that means you got to sell the house for 265,957. Okay. So if they're giving you a bigger percentage, if it's a 5% commission, you're going to divide by 0.95. If it's a 6% commission, you're going to divide by 0.94. If it's a 10% commission, you're going to divide by 0.9. Okay. And again, this is not only a test question. This is important in real life. Okay, now the next one. A buyer's agent earned a $2,400 commission on a sale. If the total commission on the sale was 5.5%, what was the sales price of the house? And we don't really have quite enough information on this, so I'm going to add a little bit more information. We're going to say that the commission was split on the 5.5. We're going to say that the commission was split 50-50 on the 5.5, right? Each part got 2.75. Each side got 2.75. Okay, because the total commission was 5.5. But the buyer's agent only got half of it. So they got $2,400. So the listing agent would have also got $2,400. So the listing agent would have gotten 24. The buy side agent would have gotten 24. That's $4,800. That's the commission. And we draw our little circle and we say earnings, price times rate. And so what we're saying is we know our earnings is 4,800. And we know our rate is 0.05. And so if we take our 4,800, which is our earnings, our commission, and we divide it by the rate, which is 0.05, that tells us what the house sold for. So if we take 4,800 and we divide it by 0.05, that tells us what the house sold for. And the house sold for $96,000. The house sold for $96,000. Now let's work it backwards again. Okay, so the house sells for $96,000 times 0.055. That would be the commission. That would mean the total commission would be $96,000 times 0.055. Let's see, let me make sure we did this right. So 2,400 times 2 equals 4,800. 4,800 divided by 0.055 is actually, it's not 97,000. Let's get rid of that. We got a fat finger error tonight. The house sold for $87,272. And now we're going to work it backwards. And we're going to say we take 87,272 and we multiply it by 5.5. That gives us $4,800. And $4,800, half of it goes to the buy side and half of it goes to the listing side. So that's correct at $4,800. Now you see I made a mistake there by rushing tonight, and by checking it backwards, we see that there was a mistake, so we could go back and correct it. That's why working it forward and backwards is sometimes a really good idea. And if there's only 6 math questions on the test, you can certainly take your time to work it, work it backwards. All right, what is the value of an investment that is paying $695 a month at 7.5% APR? Your interest rates are always expressed as annual interest rates, APR. So what is the value of an investment that is paying $695 per month and the interest rate is 7.5? Well, we're going to draw a circle again, and we're going to say our earnings is equal to principal times rate. There's a divided sign there and a multiplication sign there. And so we're going to solve for what is the value of the investment. So we're solving for the principal. What is the value of the investment? We're solving for P. So we're going to do E divided by R. Now, here's where this gets tricky. Our interest rate is 7.5% per year, but our income is $695 per month. So we're going to have to convert that $695 per month to by the year. So $695 a month times 12, that gives us our earnings are $83.40. And remember, since we're solving for the principal, we want to do earnings divided by rate. So $83.40 divided by 0.075 gives us the amount of our principal. $83.40 divided by 0.075 says our principal is $111,200. Okay, now let's work it backwards. only because we want to make sure we get some of these math questions correctly, because we just found out that we have 111,200. That's our principal. It's paying 7.5% a year. So we multiply that times 0.075. And that's going to give us 8340 per year, because this 0.75 is an annual percentage rate. It's by the year. So we're going to get 8340 per year. And then we divide that by 12. And it's going to give us $695 a month. So, we can solve it forwards first and then go back and double check our work. And like in the first problem, sometimes double checking your work, you catch a simple mistake that you made, like I made in the first problem. Okay, number 4. If a property sold for $450,000 and rents at $1,500 a month, what should a property renting at $1,800 a month sell for? So what we're saying here is, if we're going to do a proportional comparison, what we're going to say is $1,500 per month is to $450,000, as $1,800 a month is to X, because we're trying to find out what the property should sell for. So now we have to solve for X. And the way we solve for X is we multiply both sides of the equation by X. So we put an X up here because we're multiplying it by X, and we put an X over here. This X and this X divided by X is 1, so it kind of goes away. And now we have X times 1,500 divided by 450 is equal to 1,800. And so now what we have to do is we have to bring the 1,500 over to the right side of the equation. So what we do is we divide both sides of the equation by 1,500. 1,500 over here, that cancels that out. And we divide this side over here by 1,500. And now we have to bring the 4,500 over here to this side of the equation. So we multiply both sides by 450,000. That cancels out that. And then we have the 450,000 up here. So now what we're saying is X is equal to 1,800 times 450,000 divided by 1,500. And if we do that, 1,800 times 450,000 divided by 1,500, the property has to sell for $540,000. So that's one way to solve it, to say the property has to sell for $540,000. Another way to solve it is to say, how much rent do you get for each dollar? How much rent do you get per dollar? So you get $1,500 in rent for $450,000 in value. So let's do 1,500 divided by 450,000. And that gives us, that equals 0.00333. So now we know that you're going to sell for 0.00333. You're going to sell for 0.00333 of what the value is going to be. So we know again that 1,500 sells for 450,000. So 1,800, the factor is going to be 0.03333. So we're going to take our 1,800 and we're going to divide it by 0.00333. And then that's going to give us the same number that we came up with the other way, $540,000. Okay, that's a tough one if you try to solve it the second way. It's easier if you solve it the first one. Sales agent Ross has a 60-40 split with his broker. He just sold a home for $220,000 and the commission to his side was 3%. How much did Ross make? So this is how you're going to make sure your broker's not cheating you or making a mistake when they pay you your commission check. So the home sold for $220,000 times 0.03%. That's how much the commission is going to be. 220,123 times 0.03%. That's going to be $6,600 is the total commission. And Ross is on a 60-40 split, which means he gets 60% of that 6,600. So we're going to multiply the 6,600 by 0.6. So we're going to say 6,600. That's the total commission times Ross's split, which is 6/10, right? 6 out of a total of 10, or 0.6. And that's going to mean his commission is $39.60. Ross's commission is $39.60. Now, how much is the broker's commission? Well, we can just do this. We can just take 6,600 minus 39.60, and that gives us 26.40. Or we could take our 6,600 and multiply it by 0.4. And 6,600 times 0.4 is equal to 26.40. So it checks out both ways. Sales price of a home was $180,000. The sellers paid a 4% commission to the broker. Then they paid 1% of the sales price for fees and another $500 in miscellaneous fees. What's the total amount that the seller ended up with? So we're going to just go through a whole bunch of easy steps. And again, the sales price was $180,000. And we paid a 4% commission, so times 0.04. So 180,000. If we take away times 0.04 is equal to 7,200. So again, we take away 7,200 for the commission. And they paid 1% of the sales price in fees. We take away 1,800 in fees, and then $500 in miscellaneous fees. So in this case, the seller would get 180,000 minus 7,200 minus 1,800 minus 500, or they would walk away with 170,500. Okay, now let's do it backwards, just to make sure I didn't make another mistake tonight. We're saying the seller walked away with 170,500. Okay, so we have to add 1% of the sales price, which is 180,000. So we have to add another $1,800 on top of what he walked away with, and then another $500 on top of that. Now we have 170,500 plus 1,800 plus 500. That's 172. Sorry, 172,800. And then what the net is going to be that divided by the additive inverse of that, or 0.96. So 172,800 divided by 0.96 is 180,000. And that's what we said it sold for, was 180,000. Now I am recording this, and I'm going to just put this up real quick, raw too, so you can watch it again, because I know I'm going so fast. Right now, you have stopped thinking about these problems. Right now, you're just kind of watching, and that's not the way you learn math. So let's go to the next one. A home listed for $265,000 and was sold by an agent. A $12,000 commission was earned at a 5% commission rate. What was the sale price of the home? So we know that this $265,000 doesn't mean anything, because it was listed for $265,000 and they're asking what was the actual selling price. And again, the way we're going to find the actual selling price is we're going to take the $12,000 commission and divide it by 0.05. And that's because earnings is up here, a divided sign is here, principal is here, and rate is here. we're trying to find the price of the house. So it's going to be earnings divided by rate. So it's going to be $12,000, which is the earnings, divided by the rate, which is 5%, which is 0.05. And that means that the house sold for $12,000 divided by 0.05. And that gives us $240,000. $12,000 divided by 0.05 is $240,000. Now we're going to work it backwards. And we're going to take the $240,000 that the house sold for. Okay, and we're going to subtract 5% commission. I'm sorry, we're going to look at what the commission was. So we have $240,000. And if we had a $240,000 house, then at 5%, 240 times 0.05 is equal to 12,000. So everything matches up. The 12,000 commission adds up with the 5% and a sales price of 240. So whether we work it forward or backward, we're still getting the same proof of the numbers. The Bowmans accepted an offer 10% below their listing price of $259. They paid a 3% commission to the broker. What was the sales price of the home? So this is a trick question because we don't need to know what they paid in commission. This is completely unnecessary information for this problem because all they're asking is what was the sales price? And they're telling you they accepted an offer 10% below the list price of $259. So if we take $259,000 and we subtract 10%, which would be $25,900, that would give us our sales price. $259,000 minus $25,900. That gives us a sales price of $233,100. Now, if we want to double check that answer, we're going to go and say $233,100. That was the sales price. And it originally was listed at 10% more than that. So we're going to say $233,100 times 0.1. And that's going to give us $23,310. And that's, let's see, where do we make a mistake here? Again, this is telling us we made a mistake somewhere because it's not proofing out. So let's do it again. It's not proofing out. Their sales price was $259, 123 times 0.9 because they accepted an offer. So they accepted an offer of $233,100. And if we take $233,100 and we multiply it by 1.1, we have to take the $233,100, we have to divide it by 0.9. And then that's going to give us our $259,000.
Why by 0.9, Bruce?
Because it's the same kind of thing. What do you have to sell your house at with a 10% commission to net a certain amount? And so this is what they sold it at, and the increase in the value was the 10%. So this $233,100 represented 90% of the original value. So $233,100, what represents 90% of that original value is $259,000.
It's the added inverse again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not familiar with it, it's tricky at first. Bruce, I'm doing good. I got everyone right so far.
Better than me. I've already made 2 mistakes. You're beating me.
They were just silly mistakes. Don't sweat it. It's after 8.
Yeah, thank you. A broker is negotiated with the seller for a 4% commission based on net proceeds. The home sold for $325,000 and the expenses to sell the home were $24,000. What was the commission paid? So they're going to negotiate with seller a 4% commission based on net proceeds. The home sold for $325,000 and the expenses to sell the home were $24,000. So what they're going to do here is they're paying on their net. So you're going to say the $325,000 minus the $24,000 that was their expenses. That's $301,000. And then $301,000 times 0.04. And the commission would have been $12,040. Ooh, just drank some red hot tea. Ouch. Property listed at $500,000 and sold for 5% below the listing price. What did it sell for? So the easy way is just $500,000 and take away 5%. The easiest way to take away 5% is to multiply by 0.95. So 500,000 times 0.95 is the same thing as taking away 5%. So 500,000 times 0.95. That means it sold for $475,000. We could also say 500,000, and then what's 5% of it? What's 5% of 500,000? It's 25,000. And 500,000 minus 25,000 is 475,000. Gina wants to replace the carpet in her bedroom. The size of her bedroom is 12 foot by 10 foot. And to replace the carpet is $3.50 a square foot. What will it cost her to replace the carpet? So first we're going to do it by the square foot. And what we have is 12 by 10. So 12 times 10 is 120 square feet. We have 120 square feet, and it's going to be $3 a square foot. So it's going to cost her $120, 120 square feet times 3. So 120 times 3 is $360. The next part of the question is, you don't really order carpet by the square foot. You order it by the square yards. And how many square yards will she need? Well, she has 120 square feet. And to convert from square feet to square yards, you divide by 9, because 3 feet is equal to 1 yard times 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. 3 times 3 is 9 square feet is equal to 1 square yard. So we're going to divide by 9. So we're going to say 120 divided by 9 is 13.333 square yards. 13.33 square yards. Why am I writing yards with a 2 up top? Because it's yards to the second power. Because yards times yards is yards to the second power. And anything to the second power, we call the square of it. That's why we call things square yards. Not because it's the shape of the carpet. It's why we call things square feet, because it's feet to the second power. Okay, so we call it feet to the second power or square feet. It really doesn't relate to the shape of the article, because you could say, what's the square feet of a circle? But it just means feet to the second power. An agent sells a property for $415 and receives a commission of $22,825. What was her rate of commission? We're going to use our silly little circle again. Earnings, price, rate, divided sign here, a multiplication sign here. So we know that the price was $415. And we're looking for the rate of commission. So we're going to do earnings divided by price. Earnings divided by price. And so our earnings were 22,825. That was our commission, divided by price of 415,000. So we're going to go 22,825 divided by 415,000, and it's a 0.5. The answer comes out to 0.055, and 0.055 means a 5.5% commission. Dan bought his home 10 years ago for 175. He sold his home last month for 275. What's the annual rate of appreciation? So he went from 275, from 175 to 275 in 10 years. So what he went up in over 10 years, he went to 275 divided by 175. So oops, sorry about that. 275 divided by 175 is equal to 1.57. He went up 1.57%. And so we divide that over 10 years. Let's see, 275 divided by 175 is equal to 1.57%. So it went up 1.57% over the whole period. And we're going to divide that by 10, and it comes out to 0.157 a year. So every year it went up 1.57%, because the total that went up was 1.57%. So 0.157 times 10 is equal to 1.57.
So the 10 is the 10 years that you're dividing that by?
Yep, because it's asking what's the annual rate. So it's divided by the 10 years for the annual rate. The total rate is the 0.157. How much total interest is paid on a $150,000 loan that's amortized over 15 years at 8% using a factor of 9.56? I remember this question when I took the test and I panicked, didn't know how to solve it. But here's what we're going to do to solve it. We know that it's a $150,000 loan, and we know our factor is $9.56 per thousand. So what's our payment going to be? Our payment is going to be 150, because there's 150,000 times 9.56 per thousand. 9.56 per thousand. So 150 times 9.56. That means our payment is going to be $1,434 a month. And that's because we're using the factor of 9.56. So it's 9.56 per thousand. We have 150,000. So our total payment is going to be $1,434 a month. Now we're paying it over 15 years. So we're going to end up paying over the 15 years, $1,434 a month times 180 months, because there's 180 months in 15 years. So we have $1,434 times 180. So over the whole 15 years, we'll pay a total of $258,120. Now the key here is that this $1,434 a month is principal and interest. And so if we pay a total in principal and interest of $258,120 over the 15 years, but we know the principal was only $150, we just subtract the $150, and it tells us how much we paid in interest. So now minus $150,000, it means we paid $108,120 in interest. So their interest paid is $108,120. So we didn't even have to use the 8% interest here. The only reason we would have had to use it if they didn't give us this factor, and we had to look up the factor with the 15-year column and go down to the 8% interest, or the other way around, the 8% interest down to the 15-year column. But we didn't need that 8% interest in this case because we knew that we were going to make monthly payments of $956 times 150 or 1434. Our total monthly payments would be 15 times 12, which is 180. So 1434 times 180 is 25,120. And then that is all of our principal and interest we paid. And then we're going to subtract what our loan was in the beginning, 150, because everything else that you paid was interest. So if we take our 258,120 and we subtract 258,120 and we subtract our 150, we paid $108,120 in interest. They're telling me on every test, there's one of these amortization questions. So we got to make sure that we get that right. Marcia buys a property and closes on August 1st. The seller has prepaid the annual real estate taxes of $5,000 in advance. Okay, so we're closing on August 1st. Let's see, here would be June 30th. Here would be July 30th. And then the next day would be August 1st. So Marcia is closing on August 1st, but the seller paid the whole year's taxes already. The seller paid the whole year's taxes already. So that means the seller is going to have to get a credit at closing because the seller is going to close here on 8/1. However, they're not going to live in the house anymore. So they're going to have to get a credit. The seller is going to have to get a credit for that amount of money. So how much will Marcia owe the seller at closing? So what we're going to say here is we're going to take the $5,000 for the whole year, and we're going to divide it by 12, because that's how much we pay a month. And that's equal to $416.66 a month. That's how much we pay a month, $416.66. And the amount of money that Marcia is going to live in the house where the taxes were paid by the seller is all of August, all of September, all of October, all of November, and all of December. So 5 months times 416.66. So 5 months times 416.66. That means 2083.33. What that means is that Marcia owes the seller $2083.33, $2,083.33, because the seller has paid the taxes all the way to the end of the year, but the seller moved out on August 1st. And so Marcia is responsible for the taxes from August 1st till December 31st. And we know that the taxes are $416.66 a month, and she owes August, September, October, November, and December. She owes 5 months at $416.66, and that's $2083.33. So that on the closing, it's going to be a debit. It's going to be a debit for Marcia of $2083.33. And by the way, it's also going to be a credit to the seller for the same amount, because the seller paid the taxes for the whole year, but only lived in it till August 1st. So it's going to be a debit to Marcia of this amount, and it's going to be a credit of that amount to the seller. Ben sold his townhouse on March 12th. The property is subject to an HOA fee of $355 a month. Ben prepaid, Ben's the seller now, and he prepaid for the month of March. How much does the buyer owe Ben in HOA fees? So again, it's kind of a similar problem. We have the seller of the property paid the whole $355. He paid the whole $355, but he sold on March 12th. So what that means is that the buyer owes him from March 13th to March 30th. So 30 is 30 minus 17, 30 minus 13 is 17, 30 minus 18, because Ben owes the first 12 days of the month. Ben owes the first 12 days of the month. The other 30 minus 12, which is 18, are going to be owed as a, again, since Ben paid his HOA fees, since he paid them, it's going to be a credit to Ben and a debit to the seller. I'm sorry, a debit to the buyer. And the question is, how much does the buyer owe Ben in HOA fees? So the buyer owes Ben in HOA fees. Again, you're going to take the $355 a month, $355 a month divided by 30, because they're telling you to use a 30-day month. And that comes out to $11.83 a day. And now Ben lived in the house for the first 12 days. And then for the next 18, he didn't. So we're going to get 18 days that he's going to be owed a credit for. So he's going to be owed a credit of $213. So the seller will be owed a credit of $213. The buyer will have a debit of $213 because the buyer is going to get the house already with the taxes paid to here, and the buyer is going to live in it for 18 days without paying the taxes. That means they need to pay the seller back, so it's a debit to the buyer. And the seller paid the taxes for the whole month, but he left after the 12th day, so that means he's going to get a credit for that $213. Karen is considering buying an 8-unit apartment building. The NOI is $85,000. What should she pay for the building? And this is a value by income property. Remember, value by income is equal to the NOI divided by the cap rate. And so she's buying an 8-unit apartment building. The NOI is $85,000. And she wants a cap rate of 15%. So we're going to divide by 0.15. That means she should pay $566 and $566,666 is what she should pay. 566,666. And that would give her a 15% return with an NOI of 85,000. By the way, if she paid less money, her cap rate would be bigger. If she paid more money, her cap rate would be smaller. A 5-year-old 21 square foot house has a replacement cost of $65 a square foot. The land is valued at $125,000. The accrued depreciation is 2% per year. What's the value of the property using the cost approach? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see what our imaginary building would sell for. And it would sell for, be valued at $2,100 square feet times $65. So it would be valued at 2,100 times 0.65. Sorry, times 65. 2,100 times 65. It would be valued at $136,500. But on the cost approach, first we have to find out what it costs us to build our imaginary building, and then we have to subtract accrued depreciation. And we only depreciate the house. So we have $136,500. We're going to take away 2% a year for 5 years. That's 10%. 2% a year times 5 years is 10%. So we're going to subtract 10%. So that's going to subtract $13,650. And that's going to give us $122,850. That takes care of our depreciation. And then what's the last step in the cost approach? You add back in the value of the land. So then we're going to add back in the value of the land because the land does not depreciate. And we're going to have $122,850 plus 125,000. So our value is going to be 247,850. Again, 2,100 times $60, $65 a square foot gives us a value of the improvement of 136,500. We're taking away 2% a year for 5 years. So we're taking away a total of 10%. So that's 13,650. We subtract that, we have 122,850. That's our where our value ends up. And then we add back in the value of the land of 125, and that gives us 247,850. And that's how the cost approach works. All right, some of the things that you're going to have to know is the front end ratio, known as the housing ratio. And this is in the concepts of math and finance. The front end ratio is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance divided by income. And all of this has to be in consistent units. So everything here has to be by the month. And that's called your front end ratio or your housing ratio. And usually your lender wants it to be 28% or lower. They want 28% of your income to go for what your mortgage payment is. That's your front end ratio or your housing ratio. Your back end ratio or your debt ratio is your principal, your interest, your taxes, and insurance, plus your consumer debt divided by your income. And again, you got to make sure that every single thing you use in here is by the month. Your income's got to be by the month. Your credit card bill's got to be by the month. Your insurance has got to be by the month. Your taxes has got to be by the month. Your interest has got to be by the month. And your principal has got to be by the month. And PITI plus consumer debt divided by income is called your back end ratio. And today, they're allowing back end ratios of 50%, which means half of your income can go towards your mortgage payment plus your credit card debt and your student debt. That's your back end ratio. And usually on the test, they're going to give you a couple of data points to figure out what somebody's front end ratio is and what their back end ratio is. And they're going to give you what numbers they have to hit to get qualified. And what they'll usually do is you'll usually ending up being able to qualify on the front end, but you'll usually not be able to qualify on the back end, because that's how it happens in real life. In real life, people don't make enough money to qualify because of their car loan or their student debt or other debts they have. We want to remember that every point is 1% of the loan amount. And we have the thing that we call the rule of 8. If you pay 8 points, it changes your mortgage interest rate by 1%. So if you're going to get a 4% loan from the bank, and then you pay 8% of the loan amount up front as prepaid interest, they'll reduce your interest rate to 3%. Every 8%, every 8 points you pay reduces the rate by 1%. The next thing is value by income. Value by income is used for the lender to see what would happen in the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario being they have to foreclose on you and take your house away. After they take it away, are they going to get enough back to be whole again? And so value by income is the, I'm sorry, this is a value by income is appraising. Value by income is the net operating income divided by the cap rate. That's value by income, the net operating income divided by the cap rate. And that's an appraisal question, and we just did a question on that. Again, a house sells for $122,000 and the brokerage commission is 6.25%. What's the commission? That's an easy one. 122,000 times 0.0625. The hardest part about that is remembering how to write 6.25%. And so the answer to this would be 122,000 times 0.0625. The commission would be 7,625.
Bruce, I'm sorry. Can I just ask you a question?
Yep.
What is the percentage they like for the back end ratio?
Well, they're not going to ask you on the test what's the one they like.
Don't?
No,
Perfect.
what it usually is, it's usually right now it's 50%, but it's
Oh.
usually a little lower than that. It's usually about 49. And so
That's what I had in
usually,
my notes, but I
usually
wasn't sure.
on your front end ratio, they want it to be 28, and on the back end ratio, they want it to be 49. Right now, a lot of and by the way, this is not a good thing. Right now, a lot of the lenders are saying, forget about the front end. We're only going to look at the back end. And as long as you qualify on a 49% on the back end, we'll let you have the house. So what the lenders are doing is they're starting to loosen up their lending standards again. And that's what happened in 2005 through 2008. That was one of the contributing factors to the last housing bubble to burst. They started lending money to people who truly didn't qualify. And think about this for a second. You could be somebody who has no consumer debt, right? So, and you have a lender, and I was talking to Valley National Bank the other day. They don't even look at front end ratios right now. They only look at back end. So say you were somebody like my daughter who is trying to get a loan to buy a house, and she has no debt at all, and she has income. So she can qualify for a whole lot of money on just her income because she has no debt if they're letting her have a 49% ratio. But now she buys the house, right? Because she has no debt, so she qualifies easily. But now she buys a car, and now she buys, she has her cell phone in my name. She gets her cell phone in her name finally, and all those bills start adding up. Well, she could very easily now, if she borrowed all the way up to the 49%, and now she starts having debt, it would push her up above the 49%, which would mean that more than half of her pay every month was going for her bills and her mortgage, which means she probably wouldn't be able to afford it. So again, we're creeping back towards bad things that happened before. And that's exactly right. We have a lot of people sometimes can't afford to pay. And, sometimes the banks used to do teaser rates where they would give you a very low rate for the first couple of years, and then the rate would index up. And we were talking about that the other night in class about a adjustable rate loan that's an index plus a margin. Well, some of the index today, they announced the core inflation rate, I think, and it was 7.5%, where it was only like 3% a while ago. So imagine if you had an index. Imagine if last year you had a loan that was your core rate plus 1%. That means your interest rate would have been 3% plus the 1% margin for 4%. And now the core rate went up to 7.5%, and your margin is 1%. Now your interest rate would be 8.5%. So that's how people get in trouble. If they have an adjustable rate loan that has an index that's one of those highly volatile indexes like the core rate, it could get you into trouble. All right, we sold a house for 122. The commission is 6.25. So we're just going to do 122 times 0.0625 on this one. We draw our little circle, by the way, and we put earnings up here, price or principal here, and rate here, and a divided sign here, and a multiplication sign here, and we put our finger over what we want to solve. So we want to solve for earnings. We put our finger over here, and it's principal times rate. So earnings is equal to principal times rate. Okay. Brokers to earn a 6% fee on the price of a house. The house is listed for $98,000 and sells for $3,000 less than that. What will the broker earn? This is about the simplest question you'll ever get, because it's telling you just to remember you get paid your commission on what it sells for. So it was $98,000. It sold for $3,000 less. That means it sold for $95,000. And it's a 6% commission. So times 0.06. $5,700 is the commission. A seller will pay a broker $1,000 for advertising plus 4% of the sales price. If the property sells for $250, how much does the broker get? So the seller's going to pay the broker $1,000 for advertising plus 4% of the sales price. If it sells for $250, 250 times 4% is $10,000. And then they're going to pay $1,000 for advertising. So the broker is going to get a total of $11,000. 250,000 times 4% is 10,000 plus the $1,000. Sometimes you'll take a listing like that, by the way. You know, all commissions are negotiable. A couple years ago, almost all commissions were 6%. Last year, almost all commissions were 5%. This year, almost all commissions are 4%. So there's downward pressure on commission. But if somebody wants you to take a 4% commission, you know, there's not a lot of money in there for you to make as opposed to 6%. So you might say, I'm sorry?
Pressure because of the cost of the housing going up so much, the sale prices? I'm just curious.
So that really shouldn't cause that. Remember from the chapter on appraising, the principle of competition, excess profits will bring about excess competition, will ruin the profits. So real estate got real hot, right? Everything was going up in price and selling faster and faster. So it was everybody was making a lot of money. And when everybody's making a lot of money, my classes fill up with new students. And that brings about excess competition. And then the excess competition ruins the profits, right? And that's the principle of competition in the chapter on appraising.
I was actually going to ask you about that, right? Everybody's taking real estate classes. I hope I'm not interrupting everybody right now. And like, you know, is there room for all these people now going into real estate? I'm fascinated by it.
The answer is there's room for everybody. There's plenty of room for everybody, but not everybody makes money. And you know, they say that 20% of the people make 80% of the revenue. That's really about what it is in real estate. So the top 20% of the agents make 80% of the revenue. But that doesn't mean you can't be in the top 20%. The thing that most people who get their real estate license forget is that it's work. It's not easy. And it's work that you may not want to do. You may not want to call people up that you don't know and talk to them, but you might have to. You may not want to follow up with people over a couple of years, just touch. And by the way, this is why women are so much better at real estate than men, is because women are willing to follow up with people and just touch base and say, how you doing? Men only want to talk about what they want something or need something. So women are much better at this than men are. Their communication skills are much better than men's communication skills. So look at that as something to look forward to. But if you're good, you know, you're going to survive the ups and downs. And like in 2005, 30% of real estate agents left the business. I'm not in 2005, in 2008, when the market really crashed. And you know, for a while there was not as many people in the business. And now excess profits bring about excess competition, and excess competition causes the commissions to go from 6% to 5% to 4%. If you think that that's bad, in other countries, commissions on real estate are 2%. America is about the only country that has such high commission rates. So we're much better off than everybody else. Somebody asked me, I don't know whether it was you guys in class the other night or who the heck was it asked me, can I recognize who's going to be truly successful at this? And the answer is not one bit. I have had guys who are rocket scientists come into class, who are ex-CEOs of companies who are retired and just want something to do. I've had people who have 4 kids and they need every single penny come into it, and I can't tell who is going to be good. Everybody, impossible to tell. Now you can tell after 6 months or after a year, but just from meeting somebody before they get started and listening to what they say, no way you can tell who's going to be good. But it's not, you only need a high school education. And so, and my class tuition, and then get you in a position where You know, there's people like Rob Dukansky who are making $3 million a year. There's people in my office who are making $400,000 a year. And they have high school educations, and they've just gotten good at what they do. And, you know, talking, networking, generating leads, staying in touch with people, doing a good job, getting referrals, asking for the business, all that kind of stuff is important. When I first started, I was embarrassed that I was a real estate agent, and I never told anybody that I was, and I never asked anybody for any business. So of course, my first couple of years, I didn't do very well. I had owned my own trucking company prior to becoming a real estate agent, where I had 20 guys and 20 tractor trailers running all over the country. And I was proud of doing that. But when I got and I had my ICC authority for the entire country. And when I got my real estate license, I didn't want anybody to know. I was like a secret agent. And that was a mistake. I should have told everybody, because, you know, there's a lot of money to be made. And here 30 years later, I've made a lot of money from this. So there's a lot of money to be made. 4 kids through college without owing any college debt. That's a lot.
I appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Welcome. And I don't want to scare anybody off, because anybody can make money doing this stuff. And you can turn it on and turn it off, by the way. Well, I was a secret agent. I was embarrassed about being a real estate agent. And unfortunately, I got divorced, and it caused a large financial burden. And that motivated me to work extra hard in, I think it was 1998. And so I went from making $30,000 in 1995 to $40,000 in 1996 to $350,000 in 1998. And I really didn't change that much, except I just really applied myself and worked harder. And again, so you can turn it on and off. You can make $30,000 and then 1 year, and then a couple years later, make 10 times that much. All right, this is always on the test. So this will be our last question for tonight. This is always on the test. A man devised his estate as follows: 54% to his wife, 18% to his daughter, and 16% to his son. The remainder is going to go to the church. If we know that the church got $79,000, how much did the daughter get? So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to see who got what. So we got 54% plus 18% plus 16%. So let's add that all up. 54 plus 18 plus 16, that's 88%. And the rest went to the church. So we know the church got 12%. Now the church's 12% represented $79,000. So each percent, if we take the $79,000 and we divide it by 12, each 1% equals 6583.33. If we take the $79,000 the church got, we know the church got 12% because we did our calculations here. So $79,000 was represented 12%. What was 1%? It was $79,000 divided by 12%, which is 6583.37. And now the question is, how much did the daughter get? And the daughter got 18%. So if we just take this 6583.37 and multiply it, because that's how much 1% is, and multiply it by the 18%, then that's how much the daughter got. And the daughter ended up getting $118,500. And for some reason, this is always on the test.
Well, how did you get the 12%, Bruce? How did you get the 12%?
So we know that the entire estate was 100%, right? I mean, that's just known. It's just a given. The entire estate was 100%. So he gave 54% to his wife, 18% to his daughter, and 16% to his son. You add those three up, it equals 88%. And then he gave the rest to the church. So the whole estate was 100%.
Got it.
So if we
Got
take
it.
away the 88, then there's 12. So now we know that the church got 79,000. We divide that by the 12. So each 1% then is going to be this number to 6583.37. And then we take the 6583.37 and we multiply it times 18 because his daughter got 18%. So his daughter got 118,500. And this one is just worded exactly like this is always on the test. Now, how is important to your real estate career is it that you can do this math on this problem? Not at all. Because when you had a complicated situation like this, you're probably just going to turn it all over to the attorneys anyway. So why is it important that you know it? Because you want to pass the test. That's
also the broker who you're going to be working with is really the one who's going to be doing all these kinds of percentages and negotiations. You're just doing like kind of like the legwork and everything else. So why so heavy in the math?
Because it has to do with money and a lot of this stuff, and they want to make sure that you get the money right. And you brought up a very interesting thing that comes up as questions on the test. They're going to give you scenarios on the test of things that happened and ask you what you should do. And the answers, the correct answer quite often is go to your employing broker and tell them what's going on. Right. So if you have an agent on another company who's doing bad things. I have an agent in the young lady who can't sub for me because Friday's her because she's getting her radiation treatments. So she can't sub for me next week. She's doing a deal on a multifamily house in Highland Park, her listing. And the agent who is representing the buyer is doing bad things. That agent is going behind her back and going directly to the seller. And remember, the agent in my office, Marcia, is representing the seller. So the other agent on the other side is not supposed to go and talk to the seller. He's supposed to go through the attorneys, and one attorney talks to the other attorney once it's under contract. So he's doing this bad thing. And the question is, what should Marcia do about it? What should my agent Marcia do about it? And Marcia is smart. So what she does is she calls me up and she tells me what's going on. Because again, I'm the broker, I'm in charge of everything. And then my decision is what I want to do next. And that's to talk to the attorneys and tell the attorneys, tell this idiot to stop. The other attorney should not be talking to him anyway, because it's a conflict of interest for the other attorney to talk to a representative of the other side. So the questions on the test that you have, where you have a scenario and they're going to ask you, what should you do? The answer is you're going to go to your broker and tell your broker what's going on, because your broker is ultimately responsible. All right, so we wanted to do about an hour tonight. I'll record this. And even though I made a couple mistakes in the beginning, I'm going to not edit it. I'm going to try to put it up really quick so you guys can watch it again and have it right away instead of, waiting for a week or two by the time I get around to editing it. And then I will put some extra stuff on for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week in lieu of classes on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, including tests. And I'll count your hours towards your class hours if you'd like on those 2 days. And then I'll be back again the following Tuesday. And we are starting the book again, right? We finished all the chapters. So we're through all the chapters. We're going to start from chapter 1 again and go through the whole thing again. So I know some people, are worried because the first time through, some of the stuff doesn't add up. But as we go through the second time, that's when the stuff starts to add up. When we go through the third time, that's when it all starts to connect and you're able to see how one chapter relates to the others, which is, I love to see that happen. I love to see the lights go on in your brain and you relate one chapter to another. All right. So that's it for tonight. Everybody have a nice weekend. I understand we're going to have heavy rains tomorrow. So everybody stay dry and stay safe. And I will see you in a few days.
Please send our regards to
Marcia.
To Marcia. I love
Marcia.
Marcia.
Okay.
Thanks for
Bruce,
the class, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's great.
First, quick question for you.
Yes.
The math problems that you sent out to us today.
Oh, those are punishment. Those are very hard math questions. And the answers, if you didn't look at them yet, the answers are at the back, right? I have the questions in the front and the answers in the back.
Okay, I didn't get to the end, so I didn't see where the answers were.
We need cheat sheets for these.
Right. So I'm going to tell you a story that I haven't told in a while. When I was growing up as a kid, my mother didn't work or, didn't have a job. I was back in those days when your moms never worked. But in order to make money, my mother taught piano in the living room. So every day I would come home from school and I'd have to be quiet and sit in the living room and listen to her teach piano so she could watch me do my homework and still teach piano at the same time. So the thing that happened was, after years and years of watching my mother teach people how to play the piano, I don't know how to play the piano. Can't do it at all. And that's the same thing with math. If you just watch me do this, like we did tonight, if you just watched, it doesn't sink into your head. What you've really got to do is you've really got to practice it, and you've really got to start trying to figure it out and get it wrong, and not have me lead you to the answer. So, when they say, like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. How do you get the math right? And it's practice, practice, practice. So that math set I gave you is a lot of very hard questions.
With that being said, I did some Googling
Mhm.
and I put in like real estate math formulas,
Mhm.
cheat sheet,
Yep.
PDF. And there's like a lot of resources online too, that if
Anything
anybody's like,
Anything you find, send to me, and I'll distribute it to everybody.
all right, great.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, guys, that's enough for tonight.
All right.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
Good night, thank you.
See you next week.
Night.
Bye-bye.